What's up everyone, it's Austin Figueroa from Fairfax, Virginia, and today I'm here to make a video about what are the actual upfront costs of becoming a real estate agent in the state of Virginia. I feel as though when I was first looking to try and actually get a breakdown of what those costs are, it was a little bit difficult to pull together the information and really kind of break down what those costs are so that way I could be prepared to make sure I had the money set aside so that way I could afford it. So I'm going to go through the different things of costs, whether it be from your pre-license, the actual MLS fees, joining a brokerage firm or a realtor's firm, all of those different costs, just so that way then you can have a really good sense about that and make sure that it's something you're ready for when you're looking to become a real estate agent. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So really the first thing that you're going to have to pay for when you're becoming a real estate agent is going to be the cost of actually doing the pre-license course, whatever that is for your state. I've seen the costs range anywhere from probably around $115 on the low end, all the way up as high as $300 or more. It really just depends on how much material you think you're going to need, how much guidance you're going to need, if it's going to be an in-person class, if it's going to be something you're doing online. It really just depends, and that's something that you have to decide for yourself depending on what you think is going to be most appropriate for you. For me personally, I use Real Estate Express. It was strictly online. I think I went just one up above their basic package. I ended up spending about $137 on that. To me, that was a really fair price. It covered everything I needed. It even had if I end up failing the test after when I take it, that they would actually pay me back for that. Thankfully, that did not happen. But nonetheless, I feel like that was really fair price. So I would say if you're looking to do an online course, you can probably expect to pay somewhere between that probably $115, maybe $200 range on the higher end. So it really just depends on what you're looking at, and that's something you'll need to research depending on the state that you live in. So once you've actually finished your 60 hours of pre-license requirements, then you actually have to look at what are the costs to actually pay to take the national and state portion of the exam. So for that, I thought the cost was pretty reasonable. It only cost $60 for me to go take my test for the national and the pre-license test. I did it at a PSI testing center, and I feel as though that was something pretty reasonable, wasn't too dramatic, and you really got a lot of bang for your buck for that in terms of going to the facility, meeting with someone, they get you set down to then actually take the test, and then you go through, you get your results right at the end, whether or not you pass or fail. The only other thing then that's involved with that you want to make sure you actually have money for and that you actually prepare for is paying for the actual fingerprinting, which is something that's required in the state of Virginia, and that cost is $52. So really, you have the $60 for the actual taking of the test itself, and then at that same testing center, you then have $52 to pay for getting your fingerprints done. So you want to make sure when you're actually going to take your test that you have the money set, obviously, so that way you can take the test, but then also have that additional $52 that you actually pay at the testing center to then get your fingerprints taken if you pass the exam. So once you've actually completed and passed the state and national portion of your real estate exam, and then you have the fingerprints done, the next cost that's a little bit more hefty of a price is going to be the application to DPOR. You actually have to go ahead, fill out an application, and then submit that to the state of Virginia to then actually get your Virginia salesperson license. So you have to have the $150. You can put it in either as a check. You can actually write down your card information on the application. Just kind of depends on what you're more comfortable with. But you do have to be prepared to then pay that $170 for your actual application to DPOR. So that is something just to be aware of once you're actually getting started. And this is before even actually getting your Virginia real estate license, joining a brokerage firm, anything like that. So just something else to be aware of. So after you've put in your application, you finally have gotten your Virginia real estate license, you've hopefully chosen a brokerage firm, and we'll get into some of those costs later. But actually then, once you finally have your Virginia real estate license, you then have to pay for the MLS fee. And for us in the state of Virginia, we have it's known as Bright MLS. And the cost for them, it's actually about $250 to actually have the startup costs and actually activate your account with MLS. And then if you join a association of realtors, at least for the one that I'm going to be joining, which is the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors, or NBAR, That cost then, which is quarterly, is $105. So the first time activation fee is $250. Then you have the $105. So altogether, that's going to equal $355. And then you only have to pay the $105, which is quarterly after that. So essentially, that's going to be about $420 a year. But I'm just trying to do the startup costs. So that just gives you a sense of how much you need to at least have of upfront money for the MLS. So then the next cost that you're probably going to have to be worrying about in conjunction with when you're joining Bright MLS is going to be the association of realtors that you end up joining. Like I had previously said, the one I'm joining is going to be NBAR, the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors, and their cost for an entire year is $1,100, at least as of 2021. And that cost is then prorated over the year. So if depending on when you join, it will be a little bit less. But it is quite a hefty cost. It's probably going to be different depending on the area that you're in. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. See what their schedule of fees are, depending on if you're joining earlier or later in their financial year. But that's just definitely probably the most expensive cost that you're going to have up front when joining or trying to become a real estate agent. So another fee that actually comes as part of the association of realtors that you end up joining, it's probably going to be you're going to want to get a lockbox. So that way when you have a listing, you actually then are able to have a lockbox outside of the home that other agents are able to access in order to get into the home. And that's something that's offered through the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors that I'm going to be with. And that cost is actually $75 of an activation fee. And then annually, it's $135. So altogether, it's $210 just to get started as a Virginia real estate agent with that. So that way you have that ability when you're listing a property. So it's just another cost. I think it's something that's essential that you need to make sure you have. So again, just another point to be aware of, another financial point. So that way you can make sure you have those funds ready to be prepared when you're looking to become an agent. So really, when you combine and look at all of those costs from the pre-licensing requirements, taking the actual test, paying for fingerprinting, paying for your application with DPOR, the Bright MLS fees, the costs for joining an association of realtors, and then for the lockbox activation, you're probably going to be looking at somewhere around $1,550 to maybe as high as a little over $2,000. So that's only the upfront capital needed to actually become a Virginia real estate agent. This isn't including any of the marketing costs involved. This isn't including Arizona emissions insurance that you'll need to have with your brokerage firm. This isn't including any of the actual yearly fees you might actually owe to your brokerage firm when you're actually joining them. And then that also doesn't include any of the costs to actually get you by until you actually make your first sale. This means having that maybe 3 to 6 months, I would probably recommend 6 months of living expenses that you're then going to need to get by until you actually close on a sale. So this is really just trying to get a breakdown of what are the costs to actually start as a real estate agent, all of those really big initial costs to go involved because everyone's going to have different costs with their brokerage firm, how much marketing they're going to want to spend, and then, how much money they're going to need in order to live. That's really just dependent on where you are and your personal situation. But hopefully this gave you a really good idea of just about what you'll need in order to get started. That way you can prepare, start saving up, and then make sure that you're going to be ready when your time is to become a Virginia real estate agent. So I hope you liked this video. It took me some time to put together. It's really just more of a personal example of the money that I've spent so far in order to become a real estate agent. So I hope you liked the video, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and hope to see y'all soon. Take care.